Welcome to Joy in the Breakthrough, a podcast where we'll be talking to a wide range of leaders from different generations and backgrounds, leaders who have found power in being broken open. I'm Connie Lindsey.
And I'm Anna Valencia. We are your hosts, and we believe that our challenges can lead to breakthroughs, and we want to share those insights with you.
We hope these stories will inspire you to explore the I'm possible in you.
Thank you so much for joining Joy in the Breakthrough again. We are on to season 2, and we're so excited. And last season, we ended our podcast with an amazing advocate, Reshma Sajoni, from New York City. And she gave so much great insight and facts about her work on really advocating for caregivers, for parents at Moms First, trying to get paid leave at the federal level. And we got a lot of great feedback on this topic. And you and I have lots of different experiences, different takes from being a mom of a toddler to you caregiving for your husband when he was sick and your mom, which we'll go into. And we thought, we need to keep this discussion going. So we're going to have hopefully hold space for all of you who are also giving caregiving in your world, whatever that looks like, and have this conversation dialogue with you today.
Excellent. And you're right, Anna, as we look at the data and the research that shows this importance of caregiving, and it isn't caregiving in the way that so many people think. It's cross-generational. It's intergenerational. And as I am often want to do, I wanted to start us with some data and some facts.
Yes.
I know you have some interesting information. But some research suggests that 24.4% of adults aged 45 to 64 years are caregivers, compared to 18.8% of adults aged 65 and older. 1 in 4 women, that's 25.4%, are caregivers, compared to 1 in 5 men, and that's about 18.9% for men. 23.1% of whites are caregivers, compared to 24.3% of blacks or African Americans, and 17.9% of Hispanics, and 10.2% of Asian and Pacific Islanders. So there isn't anyone who's left out of this equation. Many of us have been or are right now in the process of caregiving, and perhaps someone being cared for. And we'll talk more about our own personal stories, but our goal today is to really help people understand that it isn't just a specific group. It is not age dependent. Certainly our income and levels of economic wherewithal affect the ability of that, because so many people work and are caregivers, unpaid caregivers. So let's have at it.
And unpaid time that you are doing the work.
Correct.
I know, as Reshma was talking about, there's a lot of unpaid labor that moms do not get paid for. Mm-hmm. And, dads have really picked up the pace with supporting at home. I found this data point that I kind of chuckled at. I found it on facts.com. Millennial dads are spending 3 times as much time with their kids than their father spent with them, which is great. And then I saw this, in 1982, 43% of fathers admitted they had never changed a diaper, which is mind-blowing, but that was 1982. Mm-hmm. But today, that number is down to about 3% of fathers who have never changed a diaper. So we are making progress. But I chuckled at that. I was like, but it makes sense in a lot of ways, but I do think we are shifting in that narrative and making progress, especially in my generation, where I see a lot of partners taking care of some of the domestic work too. My husband and I do that. I mean, when I got married, I was like, listen, I don't really clean well. He likes things really neat. Mm-hmm. So he does all the kitchen. He does the late nights with Brianna at times, because I can't do the late nights with her all the time. Mm-hmm. And also the laundry, and does the doctor's appointments on his own with her and schedules them. So we do have to carry that weight, but I know still women are doing a majority of the work.
And I'm from that school of thought that says, do what you're good at. I don't cook. It's not something for which I have a passion, and I often say to people when they're so surprised that I don't cook, I don't make my own clothes either. And nobody seems to be freaked out about that. And the notion of the roles that we have to have. And so I was fortunate to grow up in a household where we were not limited by the bodies in which we were born, that our gender didn't dictate we'd have to do things. Now, my mother was from another generation, but I thank God that she was clear enough that her daughters didn't have to become wives or do certain things, that wherever your skills could take you, whatever you were most interested in, that's what you should pursue. And so my husband John and I have an amazing relationship. John likes to cook, and he can cook. John cooks. The way we make different decisions, he's a CPA, and so certainly, he thinks in a more deliberate way about how we do that. But I have a financial background, and so we connect in that way. But the whole role piece. But I, was very deliberate in the partner that I chose.
Yes, so important.
It's
One
so
of the most
important.
biggest decisions, if you choose to go that route, to make. And so I know that, like, as a mom coming out, Rihanna's 3, but it's taken me almost 3 years of having her to really figure out not only my caregiving role with her, but how to take care of myself too. Because I think that's something that gets lost. And we talk about the statistics and the numbers of, like, we cannot take care of our children or our parents if there's nothing for us.
Or as they say, we can't pour from an empty cup.
100%. So I think today we also want to kind of talk about our own experiences and how we've been able to find those little pieces and moments to ourselves to refill our soul and our emotional capacity and plenty of rest too physically. I know you got me on the acupuncture kick, and I tell everybody, and I got those little seeds in my ear, and they're like, what's in your ear? And I'm like, oh, they put these seeds in your ear, the pressure points that you could just rub. And so when it's 2 a.m. and I'm up with the baby, I just rub that little pressure point to calm my mind and my soul down.
And it's to create space to talk about it.
Yes.
Because many people are walking around exhausted.
Yes.
And you and I have resources and access to things that not everyone
Thank God.
does.
Yes.
When we talk about caregiving, certainly there are people in professions, and we know our healthcare professionals and all of those individuals who do that work, who care for our children and are most vulnerable in society, are typically not the most highly compensated people, but we give them our most precious gifts to care for. So I also advocate for making sure that those individuals who do that work, they need time off too.
Absolutely. They need paid leave and paid time, family leave. And that's even when I had Rihanna, I couldn't imagine going back to work 2-3 weeks, 4 weeks, you're still in a fog. And, babies don't even get on a nap schedule until 4 weeks. And so you are just depleted trying to go back to work.
And around the globe, we see that. I think the U.S., there's some research that shows, we have the shortest time off for women who are giving birth. In other countries, it's a lot longer. They have ways of bringing women who've given birth back into the workforce without being afraid that they're going to lose their job. So as leaders in industry, it's really listening and hearing and thinking about that, or different ways that people become families, because there are multiple ways to become a family, that we understand that and we hear and are able to adapt to what the workforce needs, because there are so many ways that people are caregivers and what that means. So there's parenting, there's taking care, the sandwich generation, right?
Oh,
We've all heard that.
yes.
We've all heard
Speaking of sandwich generation, that's what we were talking about. I had a statistic about the adults, and it says that those who living parents age 65 or older are either raising a child under age 18 or supporting a grown child are pulled in many directions. Not only do many provide care and financial support to their parents and their children, but nearly 4 in 10, 38% are doing both. And that's emotionally, financially, all of it taxing to give them that emotional support too. And so I want to talk to the moms out there today from my experience and perspective is that, one, you're not alone. And I know that the stress of finding childcare and deciding, one, sometimes it's cheaper for I'm seeing a lot of moms staying home. Even I have a friend who chose to stay home over a very big career. And we're having to sometimes make choices of whether we're going to elevate in our career or take a seat back so that we can caregive. And also how expensive caregiving has become for a lot of folks, and that I know at the federal level has to be looked at. And then add on, thankfully our parents are still, healthy and okay, but there may be a day that my parents move in with us. And so thinking about the stress of having a big enough place or being able to afford to take that on. And I even have a girlfriend right now that her father is suffering from Alzheimer's, and they're going to have to put him in a facility, and where does the other mom go? They're going to move in. And so the stress, and she has 2 littles under 6 as well. And so I think that's something this generation is really having to look at and struggle of how do you're getting sandwiched at both ends. And so one of the things I just, want to share with our listeners, the importance though, you can still be a wonderful mom and be present, but those quality moments over quantity. And a lot of times we feel guilty because we're not spending all the time because we're out working if you're working from home. But even my husband said that today. I told him, like, take some time today. We have the sitter. Take a half day and really fill up your cup because he's really burning out. And he's like, well, I feel bad not spending enough time with Rihanna.
Hi, I'm Darius Hillman. Joining me on the next edition of In the Arena, artist, activist, and serial entrepreneur Jeremy Hodges. Take a look.
You know, I'm trying to get rid of all the phobias and all the isms. Racism, sexism, fatphobia, transphobia, homophobia. I want to get rid of it all.
Join the conversation Tuesday, September 19th at 7 o'clock on CAN TV Cable Channel 19 and streaming on cantv.org and the CAN TV Plus app.
And I also want to bring in those women, caregivers who don't have that as an option.
Yes.
There are so many women for whom even having paid daycare is not an option.
Oh my gosh,
Part
yes.
of my life's work has been advocating because of, what I saw growing up. My mother didn't have options of having someone else come in and do the caregiving or the work. So there are options that part of the population has that others do not. They are in work situations where they can't take an hour lunch. How do we ensure that we are at least able to say we hear you and we see you,
Yes.
and that we continue to push that?
And we advocate for that change.
And we advocate for that change. Any of the nonprofit boards that I've sat on that have to do with working moms and that I still support today, that has to do with working people in general, particularly working people who are not making a living wage. They don't have the options to be able to do that. So it is incumbent upon us. Part of the reason that we enjoy having this podcast is to elevate that, to say, our why is we hear you, and that we are not all one and the same, but we understand the issue. So
putting
yeah.
families, to your point, because you were a corporate global
Exactly.
position and you sit on these boards and you have that voice at the table, even if you aren't a mom, you're a mom of many.
Exactly.
And a caregiver of your mother. And we have to put families at the center of these policies. And we even need to look at like the workday and how it's structured.
Exactly.
Because it wasn't structured for women, we know,
Exactly.
and especially not families. And so how do we even look at the workday? COVID told us we could work really from anywhere, still be productive. And the fact that we're even fighting about a hybrid work-life balance is crazy to me.
Which is tied up in so many things. One, it's tied up in all the buildings that were built to house
Yes.
humans. So there's always, or generally, an economic reason for people feeling strongly about that, in my estimation. But the hybrid is a better decision. I had said, post-pandemic, I would hope that we could come back different in ways that were beneficial. That, people would often say, we want to go back to normal. Well, normal wasn't working for everyone.
No.
Normal wasn't working for that individual working 3 jobs to try to make a living wage, to care for their family. So let's go back to new, better. Not
Yes.
new normal, but new, better. And I am still, Anna, every day pushing for that new, better and calling it out. But not just talking about it, but being about it, investing and caring about those things in a way that, as you always say, that we have impact. But this idea of caregiving, and it's a global phenomenon. As society ages, we need to be able to find ways. You talked about your friend
Yes.
whose parent now needs additional care. Those are tough decisions that we have to make about those we love, whether it's a health issue or aging. How do we make those decisions, and where are the resources that people can go to get that?
And tell us a little bit about your experience too, and how you had to talk to your corporate. You were in a very powerful position when John was sick too, and how did you deal with that?
So I would say, fortunately for me, I was in a culture where I was able to receive the support. Now, it wasn't that I couldn't show up every day on time, ready to work, but I did have the flexibility to be able to have some compassion. There was some empathy that was afforded me, which is what I tried every day of my life as a leader to share and give to others. So my husband, many know our story, and he knows that I share the story. I always ask his permission. But my husband was diagnosed with incurable blood cancer, multiple myeloma, back in 2005. And I was working and, had our career and doing all those other things. And we got married after his diagnosis in 2007.
Were you engaged in the lobby of
Northwestern Memorial Hospital? Absolutely. We sure did, right before his autologous stem cell transplant. But the point of that was having to pivot, and we talk about joy in the breakthrough.
Yes.
And we want to talk about looking for joy in that breakthrough moment.
Yes.
And I won't bore you with a lot of statistics on blood cancer, but multiple myeloma is a cancer of the plasma plasma cells. And at the time that John was diagnosed, there were not a lot of treatments available for that cancer. And I lost one of my best girlfriends to multiple myeloma back in 2014. So she and John were actually getting treatment at the same time. So finding joy in that kind of a breakthrough, it's, where do you pivot to do the work and all of those things. I was fortunate to have a company that supported me in that, but I still had a large global team for which I was responsible. And being able to navigate between John's treatments and the other hiccups that came along the way, because as you know, when you're treated for different types of illnesses, there are effects of the drugs and all of those things that happen, but keeping it together. Number one, I had an amazing circle of friends, or a small circle of friends, but who were just wonderfully supportive. Number two, I learned to ask for help. I am not an individual who's inclined to ask for help. And so I learned to ask for help. And number three, I became his advocate, his voice for him. I studied and learned the nomenclature and understood how to ask a good question. I have a friend who would say, his joke was, what's the difference between God and a doctor? And of course we all look around and he goes, well, God doesn't think he's a doctor. I love doctors, they're amazing. But it was being comfortable asking a question of this incredible professional who knew far more than I did, but just to ask, is there something else? What could we be doing differently? And to still love my husband. How did he see himself post-diagnoses, and how that changed and shifted everything? There's so much more to the story, but for that it made and it was we had great insurance. That's the other thing, Anna, access to health care.
It's everything. It gave you peace of mind. I think I love what you said about asking for help. That is something that I did not do when I first had Rihanna. I was trying to be this Wonder Woman mom and do it all. And what I found is that I had a frozen shoulder, and I was pushing through the aches and pains. And luckily I had people who cared about me, including my husband and a close group of friends, that said, you really need to go check this out. And I really needed to inform myself also about how to care for myself. And my friends opened up a lot of resources to show me that, okay, there's a thing called nursing that I had no idea. And a friend sent me a book about how to care for your body and how it changes after pregnancy. I had no idea that some of these changes happen. And so, taking the right supplements and vitamins to get myself better and out of that brain fog was so helpful. So asking for help on how to take care of myself, and then asking for family. They don't live here in Chicago, so it's really just the three of us and relying on some close friends. So asking friends, for support, after we were safely out of the pandemic, could they come over and, hold Brianna for a little bit so I could shower, or take a quick nap, and really asking for that. And even now, as she's a toddler, I asked actually two friends, they'll find this funny when they hear it, but I said, if I want you to have a relationship with her, because we don't have a lot of aunts here, take her for a Saturday. That would be huge for us. Or knowing we had someone we could just drop off in a moment's notice if we get in a bind. And they said, absolutely.
And these
and they want to do this for you, but you don't ask.
Exactly. In the caregiving role, it is, how do we define that for ourselves? Because we can also become the crusader. And my goal was not to be the martyr. I could not help John if I was so into this that I wasn't taking proper care of myself, sleeping. And sleeping is the magic elixir for so many things. Good, healthy sleep, not, whatever, but it's like being able to do that. So how do I care for myself so that I'm present with him, that I'm healthy enough to be here for the long term? And, I had a sister who would say to me, I can't believe you sleep through anything, Connie, whatever it is. But I'm good. I often say, when I go to sleep at night, I say my prayers and say, God, here's all the things I'm concerned about. If you want me to have them back in the morning, I will take them, if that's your will, and go to sleep. And this isn't easy. I learned to do this over time. Of course, like any human, I've had moments where I've been very, very concerned about an issue, but learning to do that. And the simple things like getting my nails done or something through it all to do that.
And that brings you a little joy, because I think finding those moments of joy along the way helps lessen the load.
For sure.
I want to steal one from Stephanie Morimoto, one of our guests here. When I was in here doing a pod with you all and coming back from tonsillectomy, you all told me after the pod, take your sick days, take your time off to heal. And so I want to talk about also sleep, which you all said. She said, don't try to do too many things at once for your self-care. Maybe just pick one thing that you can do that will help you feel rested or feel ready to take on whatever you're doing in caregiving. And so mine was sleep. My sleep was all off from the surgery. My sleep was off from the baby. And so I've done a couple of things. I wear the eye mask, the pillowed eye mask. I take my magnesium that you told me to do. I put my phone.
I'm not practicing medicine.
No,
Medicine.
vitamins.
It works.
Yeah, it works. You do your own research, right?
Exactly.
And then I also put my phone in a different room. And I put on those blue light blocker glasses. And so if I do look at my phone, and then also something that I found reading in my room, just maybe 5 or 10 minutes, it really helps me ease and fall asleep, because it we know all the data is out there that those screens, your tablet or your phone, will energize you, stimulate you when you need to wind down. So I really, that's my tip, is really figure out one thing and try to do it well, and don't overwhelm yourself that you need to do too much self-care at once.
And I think I love that, and it's just do one thing and figure that out. The other part is do your best to find the resources that are available to you in your community. And it might just be sitting with someone that having a cup of coffee, tea, water, or whatever it is, that part of being still, because it is so easy to just get so wound up breathing. And I'm talking about things to which we have access where we don't have to spend money. Or our breath. We are as close as our next breath.
Yes.
How we use our breath to calm and soothe ourselves, what we can do. And then it is so important for us to have a person or a couple people with
Ventors, Dr. K.
Dr. K. Ventors.
Have your mentors.
Exactly. Those the people that in whom we can confide. Those trusted advisors, which is, the definition of the word mentor, trusted advisor, the etymology of it. Who's that trusted advisor that we're willing to share that with, that I'm afraid or I don't understand how to walk through this. Caregiving begins with us, though. It begins with the individual and understanding our capacity to give. My mother, I loved her to distraction, and she just gave and gave and gave. And one of the things that I learned from her was it's okay to take time for ourselves. Now, she raised 6 children, did all those things.
Oh my gosh.
But I did, and I
her.
learned from her. It was always a lot. And I always wanted for her to be able to have time just for her. So we were blessed to take her to Hawaii, one of our favorite places, before she went home to be with the Lord. But it was just that kind of caregiving and being loved by someone like her in the way that she did love. But it also helped me to know there needs to be spaces in our togetherness, as Khalil Gibran says. I can be a caregiver, but I also need to make sure that I'm taking good care of me.
100%. Well, we're going to go to our next segment of Say Less with Connie. You know this one, so Connie's going to drop some much more wisdom than she already has.
Caregiving, as we said, is so important, and how we care for ourselves really pours over into the ways that we can care and be present for each other. So if we break the word apart, care and giving, that care begins with ourselves, that knowing the things that are most important to us, and certainly the ways that we can support individuals. Number 1, we can't pour from an empty cup. Number 2, the more we are able to define and actualize what to care for someone, to love them, to be able to be present for them, what that means and looks like, we're able to give more. Continue, and it's to remember that it's so important to refill, to take time to pause and breathe, to stay centered in your why, as we've talked about, and to know that we at Joy in the Breakthrough, we hear you and we're here for you. Take good care.
Thank you for joining Joy in the Breakthrough, and we'll be back in our next episode, and join us for all the amazing guests we have lined up. Thank you. See you soon.